Hey everyone, welcome to another BTM screencast. Today we're going over Chapter 15, Fixture and Equipment Installation. So some of the objectives after we go over this are you should know basic fixture and equipment installations, know the tools and materials required before beginning an installation, understand the sequence of installing materials to complete a task in a productive manner, and recognize that company preference can dictate installation practices. So the first thing we're going to go over are escutcheons and stops. Every ceiling, wall, floor, or floor stub out must have an escutcheon installed to conceal the pipe penetration. So I want you to think about if you look at the bathroom in your house or bathroom at school or anywhere and there's a pipe coming out of the wall, generally there's a cap that covers it and that's called an escutcheon. The penetration through a fire-rated ceiling, wall, or floor must also be sealed with an approved fire caulk before the installation of the escutcheon. The reason for this is the approved fire caulk will help prevent the fire from passing through there because you have a hole in the wall and flames like traveling through holes, and this helps prevent that. Escutcheons are available in plastic or metal. So here we have a view of what an escutcheon looks like, and I want you to take note of this. When you install an escutcheon, install it backwards first. The reason for that is because there's tabs here, and if you flip this over and you push it down first, you're going to end up getting a tighter fit once you flip it back over and push it on the right way. So some common tools and items required for installing a compression stop are a tubing cutter, which you should be familiar with by now, right? Adjustable wrenches or compatible sized open-ended wrenches, a bucket or container to capture water exiting the cut pipe, and a rag to clean up spilled water or debris. When installing a toilet, the water supply is located on the left side of all toilets. So I want you to make note of that. When you're looking at the toilet, it's always on the left side. The stop and escutcheon are installed the same for a toilet as for other fixtures, right? So remember, when we install it, you want to flip it first, install it backwards, and then take it and then put it on the right way. The water is connected to a toilet using a tank supply. A tank supply is a chrome-plated soft copper tubing having a flat end that connects the stop to the fill valve. We'll be going over this in more detail when it's time for you to install your toilet on your platform. The toilet is installed under the closet or toilet flange and sealed with a wax ring. Sometimes, if you're using a wax ring, you're going to need heat to warm it up if the day is really cold, right? Because it's wax. And the colder it gets, the harder it gets. So you want to make sure that if it's really cold out and you're installing a toilet with a wax seal, that you warm it up a little bit. Some wax seals have a plastic accessory called a horn molded into the wax. Now, the ones that we're using in class are considered a waxless seal. So the whole you need to heat it up or get it warm before you install it. You don't need to worry about that. So let's take a closer look at the closet flange and what goes with it. So these are the bolts that go specifically with the closet flange, right? These are closet bolts. You can see the bottom view of the bolt here. It's actually like an oval shape. So when you look at it, let's say we're looking at it from the bottom, it's going to look something like that. If we look at the closet flange here, you can see there's 4 holes where we can secure it to the floor. And your closet bolts go here, they get installed, and then we can adjust all the way around, right? So there's a pretty good amount of play that you can have when installing these. Now, previously we went over 2 distances that are fairly common when we install the closet flange. So that is measured from the back wall to the center of the flange. If you remember, it is 10 to 12 inches. And that should be reflected in the diagram that you have on a previous performance assessment. So here's a side view of what that looks like. Here we have our closet flange again, right? And here's our closet bolts. Here's the wax seal. Now for the ones that we're using, like I said, we're using the waxless seal. This would be the base of your toilet, and you can see that your closet flange sits on the floor. We're going to have the wax seal or the waxless seal, and then your toilet sits on top of that. And then you have your washers and your bolts that tie in to your closet bolts, and then we put a bolt cap on top to give it a nice finish. So these are some common tools and items required to install a toilet. A tubing cutter, adjustable wrenches, adjustable pliers, flathead screwdriver, a mini hacksaw to trim the bolts, a tube of caulking that matches the color of the toilet, if you need it, sometimes you don't, and a rag to help clean up the work area. Lavatories. So most residential lavatory sinks are pre-molded, cultured marble that are a single entity with the countertop. The stub-out piping serving a lavatory is either 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches, and we went over this before. Most plumbers are going to install 1.5 inches, right? Most residential lavatories use a pop-up drain assembly. The overflow drain on a residential lavatory is an integral feature provided by the sink manufacturer. So here this gives us a better idea of what everything looks like. So here we have the lavatory bowl, and then under here we have all the pieces. So if you take a peek under your bathroom sink, you're going to see all of these things. So here's the rough-in that we have, and of course we have the trap adapter that connects our P-trap to the rough-in. Here we have an escutcheon, which we covered previously. As we follow through, again, here's the rest of the P-trap. Here's the threaded socket portion of the P-trap. And here we have a slip joint nut and washer, which allows us to change what our elevation is here to make sure that we can get this and it's tight. This is a threaded tail piece that we have, so this will go from the pop-up drain assembly, connect with the slip joint nut and washer, and then thread into the P-trap. This piece here is the pop-up plunger rod, so you might not be familiar with seeing this piece exactly, but if you go to use your sink and you can go and take it and then lift up the little plunger in the back and then it'll hold water in the bowl of the sink, that's what this connects to. So some common tools and items required to install a cultured marble lavatory. You need a tubing cutter, adjustable wrenches, adjustable pliers, a PVC saw to cut the rough-in pipe, a can of primer and glue to connect the trap adapter to the rough-in pipe, copper tubing cutter, a basin wrench, can of pipe dope or roll of tape, which we have the roll of tape, and we have the pipe dope, and of course a rag to clean up the work area. When installing kitchen sinks, there's two common types of kitchen sinks. They're stainless steel and cast iron, and there's a ton of other ones, but those are fairly common now. The weight of a cast iron sink provides the necessary stability to maintain its permanent position in the countertop. A plumber applies caulking to the edge of the cutout area of the countertop and places the cast iron sink into the hole. A stainless steel sink requires a sink to be fastened to the countertop using provided fastening clips. So here we have a side view of what a stainless steel sink looks like. So here's our countertop, and of course we have a putty or a caulk here. That gets inserted. And then we have a fastening clip. If you look at the underside of a stainless steel sink, they all have this rail, and they'll all have a clip, and it grabs the countertop. And this is a better view of what that fastening clip looks like. And this is the screw. Now, one thing, when you're installing this, let's say that you're using a putty, it tends to come out here. So you can wipe that away with a rag because eventually you're going to want to seal this with a clear silicone and wipe it clean. That way you don't have to worry about any water getting underneath here. And this helps the putty in here helps seat the sink a little better. Dishwashers, the hot water supply is routed from under the kitchen sink. The drain hose from the dishwasher connects to either a dedicated connection of a garbage disposer or a tailpiece. A dishwasher has 11 legs that are adjusted to accommodate the opening height from the floor to the underside of the dishwasher. Right, we don't want a dishwasher installed and have it leaning one way or have it leaning back or leaning forward. You want it level all the way around. So here we have what looks like a connection to a dishwasher. Don't worry too much about this right now. Laundry sinks. So there's two types of common laundry sinks. One is the wall mounted, and the other is four legs. So the wall mounted requires you to install wood backing into the wall during the rough in and a hanger bracket installed during the trim out. So think why you would need to install wood backing. You don't want to hang a sink on a wall because sinks are heavy, especially when there's water in there, especially a laundry sink, right? If you're going to have clothes in there, you're going to be scrubbing them and everything else. You're not going to want it floating on the wall. You want to make sure that you have structural support there. If you opt for the four legs, they need to be secured to the floor and they have to be drilled and anchors installed. So here's what that looks like. Here's a side view if you're doing the wall mounted. So here we have the wood backing that we put in between the studs. And then again, here's the bracket that's going to get used to mount it. And we're going to be using screws to go through the finished wall, which drywall or something along those lines, and then into the piece that you installed previously. Bidets. The water supply serving a bidet is typically a 3/8 inch supply tube similar to a sink. The base of a bidet typically has two mounting holes to anchor the bidet to the floor. Water heaters. All water heaters must be installed per local codes and manufacturer instructions. You just can't get one, go to Home Depot, drive there, throw it on the back of a truck, go into your house, and install it. They have to be installed to code and to manufacturer's instructions. An isolation valve must be installed on the cold water piping near the inlet. You want to shut it off if you need to. The typical residential water heater has 3/4 inch male or female threaded water supply connections. Most codes dictate that any water heater located above a finished area must be installed in a safety pan. This is in case it leaks, right? You don't want a water heater to leak on a finished area and have the water go everywhere and just be a mess. So you can put a safety pan underneath and it would catch any water. Most relief valve connections of a residential water heater are 3/4 inch female and require a plumber to install a 3/4 inch male adapter. So here's a quick look at what that looks like, and you can study this as much as you want. Electric water heaters only require a plumber to connect the hot and cold water piping from the rough in stub outs to the designated inlet and outlet connection. Most codes allow the safety pan for an electric water heater to be plastic due to the lack of heat generated externally from the water heater. So this is kind of a really broken down version of what an electric water heater looks like. Gas water heaters, so codes vary pertaining to the gas supply connections and venting regulations. A gas water heater uses a metal safety pan. The gas supply pipe arrangement is fairly typical with most residential water heaters. The gas regulator or gas valve has a half-inch female threaded connection. The venting requirements of a gas water heater are dictated by code. So here we have a basic gas feed that would go to your gas water heater. So in summary, most fixture installations occur during the trim out phase of construction, right? You're not going to install fixtures when you're roughing everything in and there's no finish or anything, right? You're not going to have a toilet installed and then have to finish the entire bathroom around it. You're going to have the bathroom finished and the toilet installed. The toilet installed onto a closet flange with a wax seal, or for here we use the waxless seals, and a set of closet bolts. A two-piece toilet is assembled by a plumber on a job site. So these are the ones that we're going to use in the lab. You're not going to assemble it outside and then bring it in, right? You're going to assemble it on site. And when you go to install it, you're going to see why. A trap adapter is installed to connect the stub out pipe to the P-trap outlet. A kitchen faucet is typically installed before installing a kitchen sink. The reason for this, if you have the sink and you go to install the faucet, there's usually not a lot of room between the counter and this where the sink sits, right? So if this is your counter and here we have this is going to be your faucet, right? It's going to be really tough to try to get in here, isn't it? So it's easier to have the faucet assembly installed on the sink first and then put the sink in place rather than have the sink in place and then have like this much room to try to get in and work. The drain from a dishwasher typically connects to the drain from a kitchen sink. A garbage disposer has a designated port to connect the dishwasher drain hose. A water heater installation is based on the specific type and relevant codes, especially the venting, right, if it's a gas one. Green checklist. So, if you recycle scrap copper, it can be a way to protect the environment and it also puts money in your pocket. Plumbing fixtures and equipment are shipped in large cardboard boxes that should be recycled. And that's it. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, I'll see you next time.